Hello, friends. Ben Ochart here. How are you? Hope you're doing well this evening. I am doing great. It's some wonderful weather here in Nashville, 65 degrees. I could have almost ridden my bike if I had scheduled it and if I had gotten my pedals replaced, which is something I'm doing. But welcome to all of you on the stream. Thank you for spending a little bit of your evening with me. Cichlids and Suds. That, of course, I'm not having suds tonight. Suds are not on my, for some of you, you know that I'm on a keto diet, and unfortunately, there are some suds that might be keto friendly, but you can have other drinks on keto. So cheers, my friends. Some of Tennessee's finest. So a big hello to all of you. And we have Frankie, Brian, and Chicanita is here. Hello, Chicanita. Great. I love that name. Bobby Ward in the house. Love the cichlid holding a pint. You know, that was created after my trip to Ireland. And I posted a video called Seahorse Aquarium, which is a shop in Dublin. Absolutely gorgeous. Loved it. Loved the people. And I hope to go back there someday. But as you know, if you're familiar with Ireland, Guinness is an important part of the culture. So. All right. So Bobby and George. George is here. Fernandez. And let's see who else. Hey, Denny. Good to have you here, Denny. Denny Riddell, one of my moderators. Big shout out to my moderators, Salient Aquatics and GP might be stopping by, and they just kind of help to keep things on track, and they let me know how things are going and keep an eye on things. Nicomo Bacon in the house. Let me see. Medco 74 in the house. Hey, Brian. Good to see you there, buddy. Eric Isaacson. Good to see you, Eric. It looks like you said cheers, and someone thought you were talking about the program Cheers, which was a great program. I had the pleasure of meeting Christy Ollie one time, and she was as funny in person as she was on the show. She has since left us. Rest in peace. Let's see here. Boss in the house, Boss 07. Alex Pringle is here having a glass of brew, it looks like, based on his emojis. Hey, Frank, ¿cómo te encuentras, amigo? Mucho gusto en verte aquí. Let's see who else. Jeremy Moore and Demars. Hey, Demars. Good evening to you. Tracy Ballard in the house. Captain Jager is here. Good evening to you from down the road, Memphis, Tennessee. I have been to Memphis. All right. So tonight's topic is going to be based on some information and some thoughts and ideas that you shared with me, and I really like this concept. You tell me what you think about it. And by the way, how's the AV? Can someone give me an AV check? Let me know how picture and sound are looking. Maybe Jerry. Hey, Jerry. Jerry's Fish Room in the house. Good to see you there, buddy. John Yancey is also here. So if you can give me a sound check, let me know how it sounds and looks. That would be great. And I would appreciate it. Alex, you could probably create a hard lemonade emoji if you needed one. Jeremy, I finally got my Geo. Boy, you know, the other day, my Geo, and you say my Geo or my Salvini? I finally got my AV is good. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Finally got my Salvini. Jeremy, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, ben.o.cichlid on Instagram, but I posted a short video of the Salvini. I don't know what got into her, but she was like wild. I mean, she was darting around and didn't really hurt anybody, but was definitely feeling it. And her colors were crazy. It was like somebody had flipped the switch on her, and she was just beautiful. If I can get her over here, she's over by her cave. She loves that cave on the other side of the tank. And of course, I've got the fire mouth in here. I did notice that my green tear has a little nibble taken out of his tail. I don't know if that was the Salvini when she was fired up, or maybe might have been the chocolates. The chocolates act real calm and docile, but they've got some teeth, and I've gotten one hanging on my finger one time, and it was not fun. They can be very very destructive. Harsh truth in the house. Harsh truth, if anyone lives in New Jersey, I'm donating 2 red striped geophagus about 3 inches. Now, harsh truth, why are you giving them away? Are they are they aggressive? Or are you moving into a different kind of fish? Let me know. I'd be curious. Jeremy Moore, let me see here. Did you get you picked up a Salvini and a geophagus from a PetSmart? That's surprising. They must be upping their game with regards to what they're buying and stocking. Not colored up because they're small. Now hopefully you got a female, because the females have that red belly, which is so pretty. Come on, get over here, Sally. I'm talking about you, Sally. Get over here. Come on. Sometimes she'll respond to me. Other times she'll just ignore me. So the females have the red belly. The males tend to have more of a yellow, just a plain yellow belly. They're still pretty, still very pretty. And I didn't know that until I bought her and brought her home, and she started to color up. And it's one of those things I talk about. Don't ever do this. Don't ever buy a fish and then do the research. So I bought her and brought her home, fell in love with her, had to have her, and brought her home. And then I started doing some research and heard the horror stories, got all the warnings from everybody, and then found out that the females get a beautiful red tummy. And then she started to color up, and I scored on that one, because she has beautiful red, and then she has those turquoise, the blue spangles. I think they call them spangles on the top of the body, which are just absolutely beautiful. So highly recommend that fish. Harsh truth, they were mistaken for Tapajos. Previously bought 2 Geo Tapajos and mistakenly bought 2 more Geo, but they turned out to be red stripe. Red stripes get huge. Red stripes people don't realize how big they get. The Tapajos can get pretty big too. I think the red stripes are, they're massive. Eventually you'll need to put them in a 6 to 7 foot across tank. CD is being funny. I use Comet to clean my tank. Then I guess you wouldn't have many fish, I guess. Now, interestingly enough, when people buy tanks, they buy reused tanks, and the tanks have a lot of mineral buildup. One product that's recommended is Barkeepers? Barkeepers. It's a you can buy it, I believe, both in powder and in a cream, and it actually will take some of the, when vinegar hasn't worked and you've used a razor blade and you're about to give up, some of that Barkeeper's helper can work, and with a good rinse you're okay. You won't have to worry about it killing your fish. So let's see here. Jeremy Moore has red hump earth eaters. Yeah. Those are interesting. I looked at them. They almost look like they have one of those nuchal humps, like you get in a lot of the South American larger cichlids. So what I did is I did a survey, and in that survey I asked a few questions, and I like this format, and let me get back to this question. about what you think about this format. The format of asking a question on the YouTube community page, and then going ahead and using your comments in a video. I mean, do you like that format? I posted one on recently, and it did really well. I think it was like the 20 fish that you'll never own again, and 20 that you will. I think it's something like that. I forget. One of the moderators can find that video, maybe share the link. But what do you think? What do you think of using that kind of a format? Because I like getting the feedback from you, and then featuring your comments in the videos. So if you like that format, let me know in the chat, and I'll do some more like that. But in this survey, which is at what's called the YouTube community page, you can see here, if you could accomplish one thing in the hobby in your fish room in 2024, what would it be? What is that one project or fish keeping goal that you're shooting for in 2024? Your comment below might end up in my next video. So that was the question, and I got more answers than I can feature tonight, only because of a lack of time. But I'm gonna cover some of your responses, and you'll see that the reason this live stream has the thumbnail it has, and has the title of Big Tanks and Filtration and things like that, was because the general consensus among most of you was this was the year that you get that big tank. And I just thought that it was interesting how many of you are actually looking for that big monster tank. Let me show you some of the comments, and we'll talk about them. This one was from, I believe, David Leach. David Leach, and his comment was, get a 300-gallon plus tank. And that sort of set the theme for the entire survey on the community page. Now, what are your folks? What are your thoughts about a giant tank? Do you have a giant tank right now? And sometimes people say, well, a monster tank is 300 plus, 500 gallons, 600 gallons, massive tanks. I think you're getting up into some nice size at 125 on up. I think that's a lot of water. I think that's a lot of tank. But tell me what kind of, do you have a monster tank right now, or a big tank, or are you planning on getting one? Tell me in the chat. I'd like to know. But David is definitely planning on adding a 300. And Jimbo Aqua with a W, Aquatic Life, Jimbo Aquatic Life, want to get a 150 and set it up as a heavily planted. Now, I had a 150 in California. For those of you that are familiar from California, you remember I had that 150 acrylic with the overflow box in the corner, right? That tower, the overflow tower. It was the aquarium that I learned all about sumps and ruined my wood floors, but that's another story. But it's a great footprint. You can get them tall. The one I had was a little bit lower and deeper, which I kind of like because I don't have the longest arms in the world. I don't like having a tank where I really can't reach the bottom that easily without getting up on a ladder. But 150 is a great footprint, and it was certainly great to have African cichlids in it. And as a planted tank, you could just go crazy on that thing. You could create rockscape and have, rooted plants. You could have your Anubias and your Java fern and your floating, your red root and your you could just go crazy on a tank that size. And those plants would probably do a lot of the heavy lifting of the filtering. They would be removing a tremendous amount of ammonia, and it would be just an awesome setup once it got established. And one of the things I think frustrates a lot of folks who get into, I know it did me initially, that try getting into a planted tank, is that plants, very often like fish, go through an acclimation phase, and you can have, in some cases, a very serious melt. The plants can just become very, just really ratty looking. But as they're becoming ratty, as they go through that ratty looking stage, very often their roots are starting to establish. And then you start to get new shoots, and it starts to shoot out new growth. And once you make that turn that corner, it's awesome. It's a little bit deceptive when you watch some of these channels that are sponsored by plant providers, and they're getting 300 plants mailed to them every 2 weeks or something, and they put all those plants in, they shoot the video. So it's absolutely gorgeous. So you don't see those plants necessarily going through any kind of a melt back, and then they rip it all out, and then they get another shipment from their plant sponsor. So in my case, even though I'm pretty sure the aquarium co-op would have supplied me with more plants if I had asked for them, being so supportive that they are of the channel, but I went through the normal process that a brand new planted tank would go through, and I had melt back, and then it gradually started coming back. So Jimbo Aquatic Life, watch for that, and you probably know much more about plants than I do, so just something to keep in mind. And let's take a look here at another comment from Jim's Fish. Jim's Fish, turning an old boat into an in-ground pond. Now, Jim, if you're watching this live stream, you're going to have to send me a video of that project, because that sounds crazy. I mean crazy in a good way. When I hear people talk about how they're going to do a plywood tank, like I know Cichlid Bros are talking about a plywood tank and projects like that. I mean, it's very ambitious. It's a lot of work. There's a lot that can go wrong, and but when they pull it off, it's amazing. I can't even imagine the amount of sealing, sealing it off, getting part of it in the ground. What part do you leave? I mean, that's going to look pretty cool. So Jim's Fish, if you catch this live stream, my friend, send me a video clip, or send me some pictures once you get that thing going. All right. This is from Lots 33 ml, probably to get not one, but two 300-gallon fish tanks. One to upgrade my large haps and some peacocks too, and another to start my South American, which I've always wanted to keep those specific species. Very cool. Very, very cool. And that's a great size for both of those types of fish. This, of course, is a 210, and the African cichlids are in a 300. This is 6 feet across. The African cichlid tank is 7 feet across, and it's something. It's something. Last night, I was sitting with my feet up in front of that 300-gallon tank, and I'm telling you, you just get lost. You just get lost in it, and watching the behavior of the fish, watching some of them be fired up, and for some reason they kept rotating around the plants on the left side of the tank, the artificial plants there. They just kept going in like running laps around it. It was just so funny. And if somebody would get too slow, the fish behind them would give them a little hurry up nip, and it was just I don't know why they were doing it, but they just kept going round and round. I found it very relaxing. Now, when you get into tanks like that, 300-gallon on up, you're going to have to give a lot of thought to filtration. And you know, in my case, I've come a ways with regards to sumps. I mean, I have a DIY sump under the 300 with two Cichlids 5.0 pumps, and those have vinyl tubing that then convert over into hard plumbing. And I had to learn all about it. I mean, it was all brand new. I had to learn all about plumbing and unions and overflow boxes, and I had to figure out leaks that occurred after I got it all set up. I had to work into two openings that were in the back that were not exact. They placed the overflow right in the middle of the tank, and there was a support beam. There was a support beam right in the middle back of the tank that I didn't want to cut. I could have cut it and put two support beams on each side, and I just didn't want to do that. But if you're not familiar with sumps, realize they're not overwhelming. They're actually very understandable, but really learn about them. Watch as much video content as you can and become very familiar with them, because a sump really is the best, I feel. Anything over 150 gallons, I think a sump is going to be your best option. You just run them. You run them and run them. And in my case, I've got big sponges in there that are 4-inch wide sponges that are, I think, 14 inches tall. And they're just a home for beneficial bacteria. And the water just runs through them, and it just goes on and on and on. And you don't have to touch them for a year. And when you do have to work on them, they're very easy to work on because they're easy to get into. So at any rate, I think over 150. Now, in some cases, you can't use a stump because your aquarium is going to be backed up against a wall. If your aquarium is up against a wall and you really can't access the back of it easily, I don't recommend a sump because you're not going to be able to get to your plumbing. Now, an inside overflow box that drains out the bottom of the tank, the kind that have the what they call a weir, or the actual cutouts at the top of the overflow box, those you can open the stand on the side and work on it that way, so you can have it up against a wall. But a traditional sump, like the one the one that you see here, like this plumbing here, you're not going to be able to get to it if you have the aquarium up against the wall. So just something to keep in mind. Honestly, if you're going to have an aquarium against the wall, I would encourage you to not get into all of the things involved in a sump, and perhaps consider instead a couple large canisters on each aquarium. This is a picture of a Sun 704B, but you get an OACE 850. You can get an FX 5 or 6. You can get a couple large canisters. Will handle a 300-gallon aquarium without a problem. So, and if you're using sand and maybe a couple wave makers that are moving the detritus to the intakes of the canisters, you're going to be fine. You're not going to have to do a lot of work on those canisters. I open my canisters every 9 months to a year is when I open my canisters. And that's mostly because I have pre-filters on the intakes, which I love. But again, low maintenance. Now, there's some folks out there, some purists, that when I say that, they lose their mind. They go, oh my goodness, how could you do that? But if you've watched my videos about when I've opened these canisters with the pre-filters on the intakes, they're in pretty good shape after 9 months to a year. So at any rate, the the filtering of a 300-gallon tank is gonna be a very interesting proposition. A combination of sumps and wave makers, or canisters and wave makers, is going to give you a very good turnover, good water movement. I don't have I have a powerful wave maker in this tank, but I don't have one in the 300, because the two outputs create so much water movement that I have two lines that come in near the top that create a tremendous amount of surface agitation, a lot of oxygen, and a lot of water movement. So I don't necessarily need those wave makers in the 300. So let's take a look at a few more of your comments here. This one comes from, and I just love these YouTube names. This one comes from the Nightmare Warrior C. Now, is that, if you watch this video, either you're on now or during the replay, let me know if that's a gamer. Is that a gamer name that you? It sounds like a gamer name. For those of you that tuned in late, I don't drink suds because I'm on a keto diet, but I am drinking something from my friends at the Leaper's Fork Distillery, which was established in 1801. Someone gave me a glass as a gift. Good stuff. Very good stuff. All right. I'm still saving up for a 50-gallon acrylic aquarium, but I'm saving so I can get everything needed. Smart. Be patient in the setting up of a new tank. It's not a cheap hobby, but I don't consider it a hobby. I consider it a part of the family. Yeah, I can see that. I want the absolute best and healthiest life that I can give them. Thinking about a planted aquarium with mollies, guppies, platies, rabbit snails, and shrimp. So you can keep mollies and platies with shrimp. They don't get eaten by the, interesting. Probably bamboo shrimp for sure, because they get so big. I wonder if they would eat the very small little guys. I wonder if they would do that. It's going to be a complete ecosystem. But I'm going to start with the substrate, plants, and snails at first, and then the shrimp, and work my way up slowly. Forget the MTS snails. But yeah, it's going to be beautiful when I start it up. Fish come in later. You know, I really like this approach. I really like this, what he's talking about, because what's being done here is going to be creating almost like a self-sustaining ecosystem. You know, by the shrimp, the snails, the plants. That's going to be a real healthy, living, right, bio system there. And when the fish go in there, it's going to be a very comfortable transition for them to go into something like that. So I like that approach. Definitely a patient approach, which is, boy, is that a mistake that a lot of us make. You know, trying to go too fast, have too much too quick. So I like this. I like this approach a lot. And again, Nightmare Warrior, I'd love to see some pictures once you get this thing going. And I'm sure it's going to be beautiful. And very peaceful, you know. I know with some of my tanks, people go, well, that's a little bit too aggressive for me, and that's going to be a very peaceful aquarium. I don't think mollies really get into it too much with each other, right? But I love that. Now, are you going to use the father fish method, right? Are you going to put dirt? Are you going to put some dirt and cap it with some sand, and then go to the local lake, stream, and pick up some of the muck, put that in there, and add a lot of plants, as many plants as you, I mean, that's like the father fish, living sort of environment. What do you folks think about that? Have any of you on the stream right now ever tried the father fish method of, I have one aquarium with capped you wouldn't call it soil. It's the fluval, planted substrate, but it's capped with sand. I do have an aquarium like that, my live bear aquarium. But I've never tried the entire process where you do the dirt, the sand cap, 3 inches of dirt, a couple inches of sand. I'm definitely watch his videos to get it right, and then as many plants as you can, and then you put a lot of plant-friendly fish in there. Have you done that? And if you did, how did it go? And did you go to the local stream? Did you go to the river? Did you go to the lake? Did you pick up some muck and put it in there? Some leaves, maybe some twigs. Put some of that in there. I'd be curious to know if you did that. All right. Stefano Sahertis, 5075, a plywood tank of around 500 gallons to grow out predator haps to their maximum size from fry to absolute beast. Boy, now would that be a fun journey? How fun would that journey be? You make by hand, a 500-gallon plywood tank. You get it all set up, and then you buy just a whole bunch of small cichlids and let them grow up together, and watch them just blossom into monsters, which they would in 500 gallons. That would be a real cool thing to see. Now, I see a lot of folks making plywood tanks on YouTube. You see that? I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, wouldn't even know where to start. Like, for me, it's hard for me to imagine how you would make it waterproof, or how you would get it so that some of the chemicals in the plywood wouldn't leach into the water, right? Because they use resins and glues, and I don't know. It would be a very long runway for me to learn how to make a plywood tank, but that would be awesome to grow out cichlids in a situation like that. It would be ideal for those cichlids. And very often, when cichlids grow up together, not always, because cichlids can be completely nuts, but very often when they grow up together, they end up having a higher probability of getting along, because they've just always been part of each other's environment. All right. Here's another comment. Well, this is more or less along the lines of what we've been seeing throughout the entire survey from that one guy. 12986, get my 240 up and running. Now, that's going to be fun. I'd be curious to know what that means. Does that mean that you have to go out and buy substrate? Are you going to buy it from the hardware store and pay $5 to $10 for 50 pounds? Or are you going to buy, actual aquarium specific substrate for $20, a bag, a 10-pound bag? Are you going to, what kind of filters, what kind of decor? Is it going to be planted? There's a lot to unpack on this comment, get my 240 up and running. That would be an interesting thing to dig up more information on. So here's Carl, and I think it's Waggers. I guess it could be Wagers. But Carl says, getting a 125 and selling off, or putting my 75-gallon and 55-gallon in storage. Now, Carl, what you might want to consider is taking that 55-gallon and making it a sump with an overflow box that you can attach to the back of the aquarium, like a hang-on back filter. You can buy an overflow box that works a lot like a drilled overflow box would work, except it's got a siphon that runs water down to a sump that is then being pumped back. So you might want to turn that 55 into a sump and get an overflow box, Carl, and keep that 125 super filtered and pristine with a lot of water turnover, and you'll get the advantage of the extra water volume that the sump will add to the system. And of course, we know, right, that dilution is the solution, right, to pollution. Now, our friend who stops by on Saturdays, Razin Fishes, 1918, looking to buy or build an 8-foot aquarium. If I build it, it will be 4 by 8. That would be epic. So, as you can see, a lot of folks that replied were talking about big tanks. 4 by 8, I could actually swim in that aquarium. So, when you get it set up, give me a call. I'll grab my shorts. I'll come over. 4 by 8. Now, when someone says I'm going to build a 4 by 8, you know, I considered building a big tank once, and just having the right workspace and the weight of the pieces of glass that you're going to have to work with, and the kind of clamps you're going to have, and it's a major project. And when I visited my friends over at Glass Cages here in Nashville and looked at what they do, and the little things that can go wrong that can result in a chip or a crack, or just the preciseness that they have to work with, and the space and the controlling of dust and everything that has to go on to building tanks, it's something. And if you're going to be building that tank out of glass, you're going to be dealing with a lot of weight. So we have a comment from Winter's Dark. Cool name, Winter's Dark. Setting up a sump filtered rack of tanks in my fish room. It also happens to what I guess I meant to say, to be a house, a washer to house. Okay, happens to house a washer and dryer. Got the rack built, sump built, and running filtering the first tank. Need to add 5 more tanks, 2 of which I already own, and get them stocked. Now, my only consideration, as you folks can probably guess, right? My only consideration about that project would be that every tank will go the way of every other tank. So it's the same reason that when I go to aquarium stores, I check to see if there's shared filtration. If you're going to run all the tanks on one big sump, it just seems like you could run into cross-contamination issues. So I would just watch for that. Maybe I don't really understand the actual way you're going to set it up mechanically, but just something to keep in mind. I mean, there are some folks that have different sets of nets and hoses for each tank because they don't want to risk cross-contaminating. To have a shared filter system, it seems like there would be a very high risk. That would be my only consideration. Now, having it next to your washer and dryer, if that's also where you have a sink, not a bad place. I had an aquarium back in California. I had it in a bathroom. I had the house had a master bathroom that was pretty large, and it had an open space where I suspect back in the day they used to have a towel rack or something, and I put an aquarium there, and it was really easy to work on because I had the sink right there. So that was kind of a cool setup. Okay, looks like upgrade to 180, Adler 819. And again, the ongoing theme, getting into big tanks. The Hairy Woodsman. Okay, do we see this one already? Oh no, I'm going to build a 500-gallon plywood aquarium and try not to get divorced while doing. Now, he clarified that he was just joking. That would not result in a divorce. His wife is very supportive. Let's just be very clear about that. But I'll tell you, having a supportive spouse in this hobby, especially if you start to get a bad case of multiple tank syndrome, or you want to go on to a big project like a 500-gallon plywood aquarium, having a supportive spouse is crucial. So, happy wife, happy life, right? So at any rate, those were the comments. And if any of you would like to add any comments about what your plans are in 2024, go ahead and include them in the chat. I'd like to see them, and I'm going to go ahead and read your comments. Let's take a look at your comments right now. Let's see what you're up to here. What have you been talking about? Well, I've been rambling on and on. By the way, if there was a super chat, I totally missed it because I wasn't looking. So if you did a super chat, thank you. But I would not have noticed because I wasn't looking at the chat. I was just on a roll. But let's see here. I'm going to take a look at your questions. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it in the chat now. GP, I thought you were saying that social media was vile, and I was going to agree with you. And then I realized you were responding to social media is vile. All right. Let me go ahead and unpin this message. If it lets me do it. All right. So any questions, go ahead and throw them at me now. And we'll go ahead and take them up. Some of you are talking about drilling an aquarium. Now, do they still make aquariums that are made of the kind of glass that shatters when you mess with it, right? The way a windshield does. And all of a sudden you have all these spider cracks, these spider web cracking in your aquarium. So you gotta just really watch out, make sure that your aquarium is not made of that kind of glass before you start drilling, or else you're just gonna have just a web of crack just spread throughout the aquarium, and it'll be completely worthless. There's a specific name for that. Hey, David is here. As you know, David, I used one of your comments. I want a 210 long minimum for a deeper tanks, 30 to 36 inches deep, 96 inches long. Yeah, David, that sounds a lot like my 300. My 300 is over 30 inches from front to back, and I really like that because it gives the bigger fish, like the Malawi trout, a lot of turnaround room. If it was going to be done as a planted tank, it could be really beautiful because you could get the sand or the gravel to gradually rise as it goes towards the back of the aquarium, and it'll give you a tremendous depth of field, and then you can start planting from the back forward. It'd just be gorgeous with that depth. Really, really pretty. Really, really pretty. KJE, good info. Thank you, KJE. You are welcome. Social media is vile. Boss, are you asking me about lava rock? I've used lava rock. I stopped using it because it was a little bit too jagged. And I found that sometimes my cichlids would end up with a scratched eye. And I think that would happen like at night in the dark. They'll chase each other. Or if they get startled, they just dart and like don't really care. They just want to get away from what's startling them. And I think that would score an eye from time to time. And in worst case scenarios, which happened to me a couple times, and once with a gar, which I felt terrible about, it'll turn into an infection. And once an infection starts in the eye, it's really hard to get it to turn around. It's like the perfect environment for an eye. That's right. That's right, Hagen. Tempered glass. Tempered glass. Make sure your aquarium is not tempered before you attempt to drill, or you will have a very bad surprise. Zell, my setup for a pre-filter on an FX6. Yes, I do have several videos on it. Maybe some of the moderators can share some of the links. But really, all I did is in the case of the FX6, I picked up the extra large pre-filter from the Aquarium Co-op. I removed the grill from the FX6 intake. I removed the grill. I drilled a few holes in the tube, right? Just a few, I don't know, maybe a dozen holes, maybe, with about 1/16 drill bit. And then the sponge just slides over the tube, and you know the suction holds it in place, and that's the pre-filter. On this tank, there's a Sun 704B, and I just took some medium sponge that I had left over from my friends over at Swiss Tropicals, the ones that cut the sponges for my sumps. They send you the pieces that are left over. So they sent me a couple nice chunks of some of their matten sponge. I just cut a block. And then just cut into it a straight line, and then it just slips right over the intake of the Sun, just like a sock. Just slips right over it, and it works perfectly. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy or complicated. It can be very simple. You can buy sponge material on eBay or on Amazon and just DIY it. Or you can check out what is offered by the co-op, and just be sure you use my Aquarium Co-op affiliate link. There's my shameless plug. Yes, I am an affiliate for the Aquarium Co-op. And by the way, that reminds me that I want to remind you that I'm going to be speaking at the Ohio Cichlid Association, the OCA, on Friday, March 1st at 8 p.m. I think Josh Cunningham is going to be there. He's driving 2 hours down from Michigan. So if you're in the Cleveland area, stop by. Would love to have you there. And let's pay a couple real quick bills. If you shop on Amazon, and who doesn't, use this link to get there. It'll take you to my store. If you don't want anything from the store, you can then pop out and buy whatever it is you want to buy. And the channel will get credit. Your price remains the same. And while I'm on the topic of Cunningham, Josh Cunningham, be sure to check out Cunningham Tropicals. He is a sponsor of the channel. And he has created a discount of ben.o.15 for 15% off on fish, and ben.o.10 for 10% off on dry goods. So check that out with my friend Josh Cunningham. He is 100% legit. And a very big shout out to those of you who are members of the Garage Gang, my Patreon monthly supporters. Starts for as little as $3 a month. Check it out in the description. Those of you who have committed to more have little asterisks next to your name. You know who you are. Thank you so much, Patreon supporters. You help me more than you know, my friends, to keep things going in this fish room. And last but not least, if you would like to pick up some swag, like a coffee cup or a t-shirt or anything like that, check out my Teespring store. I have a whole bunch of t-shirts and mugs and all kinds of stuff there. And be sure to check that out. Any purchase you make helps the channel considerably. So there you go. Just had to pay a few bills. And we got that out of the way. And I appreciate you folks hanging in there for that. So let's see. Any more questions? Hey, Alex. Alex in the house. Kenneth D. And let's see. Don't use tempered glass anymore. Thank you, David. Good to know. Just something to be aware of if you buy an older used tank, I guess, but it's not being used currently. Okay, that's good information. Let's see here. Cat Sailor has a question. Cat Sailor says, I have a used tank for the past 5 years, but can't remember how old it was with the original owner. When would you consider resealing it to get ahead of any leakage? Well, the rule of thumb is 10 years. Whenever I say that, somebody gets on the gets on the comments and says, I've been running a tank for 20 years. But 10 years seems to be the rule of thumb. Very often tanks are marked on the bottom. You probably at this point have no way to access that. But very often their manufacture dates are on the bottom of the tank. But yeah, I would say 10 years. Now, there are lots of good videos on YouTube, including one from our friend over at the King of DIY, Joey. He's got a very good, simple resealing video from back in the day. It's actually a very simple process. What you have to make sure is don't get the blade that is removing the old seal. Don't get between the pieces of glass. Leave that alone. Only remove the surface silicone and just really clean it up. Clean it with alcohol. Really make sure it's really clean. Don't get between the sheets of glass. And then do a simple reseal. You can use your blue masking tape to give you a nice clean edge. And there's lots of tricks you can do. And again, there are a lot of YouTube videos on how to do it. I've resealed tanks twice. Both times came out fine. One time I resealed a tank twice because I didn't like the color. So I changed it from a clear to a dark silicone because dark wouldn't show the algae. So clear silicone is nice, but it does wear and yellow over time. All right, so let's see here. I hope that answered your question, Cat Sailor. Sal Pal, boy, I hate that when you can't see it, when you can't figure out, get a leak to work out. Salient, are you talking about an FX6? Maybe she not having a pre-filter for an FX6, is that what Candy was talking about? Because you can modify and DIY one of their big round filters. They, one of their big round sponges. They don't have something custom made for an FX6 that goes over the grill of the intake. They don't have that. But you can actually take off that grill, drill some holes in the tube, and just slide it over the tube. That will work. It's what I'm looking at right now in the 300 gallon right in front of me. So I do have some videos on that topic. If you just go into my playlist, I have an FX6, Fluval FX6 playlist, and the entire process is discussed in there. Kenneth D is new here. Welcome, Kenneth D. I am glad you're here. I'm glad you made it. I know for some of you, this Wednesday evening is a better time because the Saturdays for some of you just doesn't work. So I often will see some of you on Saturday that I never on Wednesdays that I'll never see on Saturdays. One tip, Luke, and one tip to all of you that are considering resealing. That silicone is pretty toxic smelling. So be sure that you are in a very well ventilated area and have a fan running, because man, oh man, I had my head inside of that 180, and I came out of there and I was pretty lightheaded, and it was no fun. So preferably do it outside, and also if you do it outside, you can go ahead and fill it up outside after the silicone is dried for 48 hours. They say 24. I go 48 hours. go ahead and fill it up with water and let it sit there for a couple days. That's what I did. And if there isn't a single drop coming out of anywhere, you are good to go. Go ahead and drain it and take it on in. Well, Nate says that my newer Sephora 225 gallon is tempered. Well, there you go. So man, oh man, don't ever drill that tank. Says here, Hagen Hill, I like the Saturday, lines up with my lunch hour. Just don't let the boss catch you, or you'll get in trouble, my friend. I don't want you to send me a note that you lost your job. I can't give you a super chat, Ben, because I got fired watching your live stream. All right. Well, there you go. So Miguel did the DIY, repurposing of the Aquarium Co-op pre-filter, and it works. It works fine. William wants to know, is it worth paying $5,000 for a brand new 310 gallon? $5,000. What do you think, folks? Let's throw it out there, William. Is it worth paying $5,000 for a new 310, or would you buy a used one? Is that $5,000 for glass, or are you talking about acrylic? Because that's a lot of dough. Yeah, glass cages, I think, will get you one for less. Depending where you are in the world. I mean, you've got to add shipping, but $5,000? That's a lot of dough. My big tanks in California were all they were all used tanks that I picked up on Craigslist, and they were great. A 100-gallon acrylic. I had a 180 acrylic. I think my 60-gallon I purchased brand new, but they were used. I cleaned them up, and they were fine. Someone is asking, is it made of gold? I mean, yeah. If you check the prices recently on tanks, especially the way William is talking about it, you add in the canopy, right? A nice stand, a canopy, and a tank, and it gets up there real quick. So that's not that far-fetched a price. Matthew says he's got 8,000 in his, so you can see it can add up pretty quick. And are these freshwater tanks? Are you looking at a freshwater tank? And Matthew, is yours a freshwater? You start getting into saltwater, and you start getting into overflow systems, and you start getting into skimmers and custom made sumps, and you're at 10 grand. You're at 10 grand. Now you're going to put about 10 grand in corals in there, and another 5 grand in fish. Yeah. It's now you understand why people will invest a lot of money in power backups for their homes, because man, oh man. Alex says in Canton, 210, they're selling for 1,200 used. Well, that's not a bad price. I mean, definitely look it over, make sure it looks, it's not too old, make sure there's no scratches. I think the days of $1 a gallon, that probably went the way of $1 a cc. For those of you familiar with motorcycles, you could pick up a 600 for about 600. Those days are gone. You could pick up a used 300 gallon for about $400, 300. Yeah, those days are gone. But sometimes you'll be surprised what you can find on Craigslist. You find folks who, for whatever reasons, have left the hobby. They've burned out. They've moved, or they're about to move, and they can't set up a tank where they're going, and they really are in a desperation sale. The people that bought the stuff from me in California, they got really good deals, real good deals. Because as I was getting closer and closer to the moving date, I was selling beautiful 7-inch African cichlids, for $30. Anyway, they were getting great deals. So they're out there. They're out there. You just got to move quick. If you see one, you got to move quick. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, or ideas? And if you like these Wednesday nights, let me know. Maybe I'll start doing them more regularly. I had not done them in a long time. It is a bit of a different vibe on Wednesday night than it is Saturday morning, but we will. I'll consider doing them from time to time. And I appreciate all of you taking some of your Wednesday evening and spending it with me. TEW 1970, a Wednesday night treat. Yeah, thank you for that. Now, the only reason I would not show up on Saturday is that we're within 5 days, maybe within 5 to 10 days, my second granddaughter is going to be arriving. My poor daughter can barely walk. She's waddling around. She went for her last appointment. They told her, your next appointment is in 2 weeks. We doubt that you will make it. We pretty sure this baby's going to come before your next scheduled appointment. So if I'm not around on a Saturday, it means that I've run to grab River, my granddaughter, my first granddaughter. My wife is off to the hospital with my daughter and my son-in-law, and that's what we're doing. So if I no show on you, that's where I am. Otherwise, I will be here Saturday at 11 o'clock Central. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. You are the best. And never forget, you rock. Thank you to my wonderful moderators. Thank you to my Patreon. Thank you to my subscribers. And there you go. I'll talk to you on Saturday. I think that's it for me. I think we'll call it a night. What do you think? Yes? All right. Thank you, my friends. Bye for now.